artists, welcome to your elephant with flower painting class. In front of you, you should have your canvas, your cup of water, a paper towel, a large brush and a small brush. You should also have a piece of wax paper. You do not have to pour your colors onto your wax paper. That wax paper is for mixing on later. I just poured mine out so you can see my colors a little bit better. But you do have yellow, purple, pink, teal, and then black and white. Again, you do not have to pour out your colors onto your wax paper. That is to mix on later. If you do not have all those materials, not a problem. Just push pause on the video and come back to us whenever you're ready. The first thing we're going to do is make sure that our brushes are nicely washed and dried. So I'm going to take both of my brushes, dip them into my cup of water, and just gently stir them around, get them nice and clean. And then gently pat the two brushes onto your paper towel. Every time you clean your brushes, just be sure to wash and then dry. You do not want any drip marks onto your canvas. So just like laundry, we first wash and then dry our brushes. The first thing we're going to do on our canvas is paint the background yellow. So we do not want to paint on our elephant or on our flower. We're going to use our small brush. So our small brush and the yellow paint. Be sure the paint isn't dripping off of your brush. You can always wipe it off onto your paper towel. So you're dipping your small brush into that yellow container of paint. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start underneath the trunk right here, and I'm going to drag my brush from one side of the trunk and stop right here before I reach the stem of that flower. And make sure you're making nice, long, smooth lines. You don't want short, choppy ones. I'll go back to my yellow and my small brush, and to the right of this leg, again, I'm going to drag my small brush with my yellow paint, like so. Once I'm done, same thing, yellow paint, be sure there's not too much on there. I'm going to go underneath the belly, and then to the left of this leg. And I'm just making a yellow outline around my elephant and my flower so I know where to stop with the yellow. Again, yellow paint, just a little bit. And now I'm going to go above the head of my elephant. I'll start here and I'll drag my small brush. I'm just going to keep going. Always go back for more paint. Stop right about there. So 1, 2, 3, 4 areas so far. And then I can just kind of continue with more yellow and drag my small brush and stop right here where it kind of comes to that edge. So be sure to stop right there. You don't want to pass this E shape right here. Stop right there. I'm going to go to the left of this E shape right here. I'm going to go to the left of this leaf and to the right of this leaf. Again, I'm going to continue with my small brush and my yellow. I'm going to go to the left of the stem, to the left and above this petal. I do not want to get any yellow inside of that petal space. And I'm just going to do the same thing all around each petal. To the left and to the right, I'm going to outline both sides. Once I'm done, I can go to the right of the stem and stop right here at the edge. And to the right of this trunk area right here. Above this line, to the right of this line, and below that line right there. Then to the right of the stem, to the left of the stem, and that little space underneath it. There's also this little space underneath this leaf right here. It's almost like a triangle shape, so I'm going to outline this little triangle shape right here, and you can go ahead and fill it in with your small brush. So you have your leaf, you can outline this triangle shape underneath it and go ahead and fill it in. Once you're done, you can carefully lift up your canvas, and I'm going to bring this line over to the left and this line where the belly is over to the left, just so that I know between these two lines it's going to be gray, because that's where the elephant body kind of continues onto the edge of our canvas. So here's the belly. You can kind of continue this line over here, and then this line I can just bring down like so. So later on I'll be painting below this line and above this line, because this area will be gray for my elephant. Perfect. And once you're done, you can go ahead and wash and dry your small brush, because we'll be jumping to our big brush to paint all that space in the background. We don't want to paint on our elephant, and we don't want to paint on our flower. If you do need to ever go back to your small brush for those smaller little areas, if it's a little bit easier, you can jump back to your small brush. But for now, you can take your big brush, dip it into your container with yellow paint. So big brush, yellow paint, be sure it's not dripping off of there. And we're going to start painting the background. And I'm just going to start on the right area. Nice long lines going up and down only. Make sure it looks nice and neat. And just slowly filling up all that space in the background. Again, do your best not to paint on your flower or your elephant. Be sure you're moving your big brush up and down with your yellow paint. Kind of avoid painting on your flower. Be very careful. Take your time. If you're still working on your outline, not a problem. Be very careful. Stay outside of those lines we just made. Make sure not to paint in the trunk area. Again, be very careful not to paint where the flower or the trunk is at. We're painting all that background space, so all that space behind the elephant and the flower. Make sure you don't have any bumps with your paint too. If you have any bumps, you can always just kind of go over it to smooth it out. It'll just take a really long time for those big bumps to dry. You'll be able to see them as well. So you want to make sure it's nice and smooth. You want to paint above the elephant's head, below the trunk. I'll do my best to avoid getting any yellow paint inside of the elephant. If you accidentally did, not a problem. Later on, we'll be covering it with gray paint, so you'll be fine. I'm going to continue to paint up and down above its head. Go all the way over to the side and paint this area. Make sure my paint is nice and smooth. And I can start painting underneath the belly area. Take your time. Again, this is all the background space behind the elephant and the flower. We will be painting the 4 sides. Once you're done with this step, go ahead and use your big brush and the yellow paint and paint above this line that we made earlier, so above kind of the back and head area. And below this line, we want to save that space in the middle for gray paint for our elephant's body. So as you can see, I painted above that line we made earlier and below that line. And I'll also be painting the bottom, the right, and the top, and you can completely fill those in. Take your time. This part I'm just going to go side to side on the bottom. And it just looks better when you paint the sides. When you hang it up on the wall, it just looks a little bit cleaner. So there we go. Carefully just keep turning. If it's easier for you, you can leave your canvas flat on the table, just so that you can see I'm lifting up my canvas so you can see all 4 sides. I'm just kind of painting up and down on the right side, completely covering. And then side to side on this top part. And I can completely cover all this white area because there's no space where the elephant or the flower reach up top. So the front, the left, the bottom is completely covered, the right side, and the top. Carefully lay it down. Again, if it's easier for you, you can just keep it flat on the table and reach all 4 sides. And take your time with this step, but once you're done, I would give my canvas a couple minutes to dry and then go back and give your yellow a second coat. So you'll see these shiny spots right now, but I'm going to give them some time to dry, and then I'll go over it a second time. It's much easier the second time so that you don't see these streaky lines. It'll just kind of cover your canvas better. It'll make it look more solid so you won't be able to see the white canvas as much behind it. But again, be sure to give it a couple minutes to dry so you can lay that second coat of yellow on top. I'm going to wait about 1 more minute and give mine a second coat, but take your time with yours. Again, you're always welcome to push pause on the video. All right, and again, give it a couple minutes. I'd probably give mine 1 more minute if I wasn't filming, but I'm gonna go over all my yellow with another coat, doing the same thing, nice long smooth lines. Again, you can see a huge difference between the first coat and the second coat. The second coat just makes it look so much neater. It goes by way faster too. But again, be super careful not to get any of that yellow paint on your flower or your elephant. And if you did, again, it's okay. We're going to be painting on top of that. We want to do our best to avoid those areas. You can go over your outline a little bit too, so you don't see that harsh line anymore. Just again, do your best to avoid painting the elephant and the flower, but you can go over your outline just a little bit so you don't see that line anymore. And again, huge difference between first coat and second coat. And if you truly wanted to, and if you had the time at the end, you can go back and give your yellow a third coat to get some of the spots that might still look a little bit streaky. All the way down. In that little area, be very careful. You can use your small brush if you want to for these smaller spaces. And in just a moment, I'll also be giving the yellow on the sides a second coat. Very carefully lift up the canvas. Below the belly, above the back area. Again, you can lay your canvas flat if it's a little bit easier. It can be kind of hard sometimes lifting these canvases up while they're still wet. Take your time. But once you're done, you can clean your brushes that still have yellow on them. If you use both brushes, go ahead and wash both. If you just use the big brush, you can just wash your big brush. Make sure they're really, really clean. Wipe them off on your paper towel. You can even wrap them all the way around with your paper towel. Make sure they're clean all the way around. Take your time. Once you're done, again, wash and dry your brushes. You're welcome to push pause on the video if you're still working on it. But the next thing I'm going to do is paint my flower. For my flower, I'm only going to use my small brush. And I'm going to kind of avoid touching any of the yellow right now because it looks a little bit wet. So I'm going to concentrate on the center area of my flower with my small brush. And you can just dip it into your container with the purple paint. So small brush, purple paint, be sure it's not dripping off. Be sure to hold your brush where the gold is because you really want to have good control. So hold it nice and tight. And you're going to go over this pencil line with your purple and just kind of outline it again. And then just fill it in. It's kind of moving up and down, making sure it's nice and filled in. You can even give this purple a second coat if you feel like you can still see too much white underneath it. Maybe give it a minute to dry and then go over it again. Once you're done, you can wash and dry your small brush. If your yellow around it still seems really wet, maybe give it another minute to dry before you do this next step. So purple in the middle, wash and dry my small brush, pink petals. You can just dip your small brush in your container with the pink. I'm going to outline and fill in all my petals. So I'm going to outline them all first with my small brush. Be careful of your purple paint. So I'm just outlining them the left side and the right side. In a moment here, I'll be filling them in. Make sure your paint is nice and smooth. You do not want any bumps. Just going over it one more time to get them nice and smooth. And then once you're done, you can use your small brush and your pink paint again to fill them in. I'm just kind of painting up and down or side to side in each one, making sure I'm just going the same direction on each petal. with that pink, I would probably go back and do a second coat, so give it a minute to dry and go back a second time, because as you can see, you can definitely tell that there's still some white poking through. So I'm going to give mine just a minute to dry, and I'll go back over it a second time. So purple in the center, pink flowers, all just done with my small brush. I'm only going to use my small brush for this step. Go back where I kind of started from and give this flower a nice second coat. Perfect. And once you're done, you can wash and dry your small brush. And then the stem and the leaves are gonna be that teal green. So I'm gonna really make sure that pink is off of my small brush. You can just take your small brush and dip it into that container with that teal, which is that really pretty bluish green color. I'm gonna start off with my stem. Just remember, whenever you're doing line work, that the harder you push on your brush, the thicker the line becomes. So you just want to be on the tippy toes of your small brush, barely push down. I'm gonna start here and then stop right there. So right where that leaf is, it's gonna stop. I'm just gonna follow this line right here and just barely push on your brush from here to here, and then from here to here. Then I can outline and fill in my two leaf shapes. So I'm just gonna be going over the pencil work, going over that pencil work, and then I can go ahead and fill in. Then you can go ahead and wash and dry your brush. There's one more thing I'm gonna do with my flower before I move on. And be sure your brush is really washed. You can even wrap it around with your paper towel all the way around. I'm gonna grab a scoop of white and put it on my wax paper, and a scoop of pink and put it on my wax paper. I'm gonna mix and make a lighter pink, and I'm gonna do some sweeps of light pink and some dots. So let me show you how. Small brush, take a scoop of white and put it onto your wax paper. Then you want to wash and dry your small brush, and then grab a scoop of pink and put it right on top of that scoop of white that you just scooped on there. And then onto your wax paper, you can just kind of mix to make a lighter pink. Be sure when you switch from white to pink to wash and dry your small brush. So white, pink, mix the two together. After I'm done mixing, I'm going to just kind of wipe off the sides of my small brush so I don't have any big chunks on there. And with my light pink, I'm going to just grab just a little bit of my light pink. And on my petals, I'm a little bit here, a little bit there. It's very random. You can just add some sweeps of light pink. A little bit where you see the pencil lines, so that light pink can kind of cover up some pencil lines that might still be showing through. So a little bit of light pink here and there. Be very careful of your teal and your purple. Just add a little bit of sweeps. Kind of flick your brush just on the sides where you see that pencil line. You want to cover them a little bit with the white and the pink mix. So I did a little bit here, a little bit there, just swept, flick, flick. Be very careful of your purple paint. Also with that light pink, I'm going to take the back of my small brush, So the back where you see that perfect circle, I'm going to dip it, kind of move it around that light pink mix. So now I have light pink on the back of my small brush. And just like a stamp, I'm going to go over where the pink and purple kind of meet. I'm going to go all the way around. You can go back for more if you need to. Just make dots. So just like a stamp, I'm going to use the back of my small brush and make those dots where the pink and the purple meet. Add light pink dots and go all the way around that light pink. You can just kind of clean off the back of it with your paper towel and wash and dry your small brush. And our flower is done. Our next step, when you're ready for it, again, you can push pause if you're still working on your flower, is painting our elephant gray. You do not want to paint on the toenails. And once the gray is nice and dry, we'll add the ears and the eyes and the tusk. But for now, I want to paint the elephant gray. Of course, we don't have gray in any of our containers, so we're going to make some by grabbing a scoop of white and a little bit of black. So whenever you're ready, you're going to take your big brush, make sure it's really washed and dried. You want to make sure it's nice and clean. You want to dip your big brush into your container with the white paint and get a good 1 scoop, 2 scoops of white and put it onto your wax paper. Looks like I still have some yellow on there, so I'm going to take that off. So 2 scoops of white. Wrap it all the way around, make sure I get all that yellow off. And then with your clean brush, you can dip into the black paint and get like a half a scoop, not that much, because a little bit of black paint goes a long way. So just a little bit of a scoop and bring it over to your white and mix. And if you want your gray to be darker, you can go back for a little bit more black. If you want it to be lighter, be sure that you have nice clean brushes. You can go back for your white, but be sure your brush is nice and clean before you dip it back into those containers. So if you want it to be darker, add more black. If you want it to be lighter, you can add more white. So I'm done mixing. I think I do want mine to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to wash and dry my big brush. I'm going to go back for another half scoop of black and mix it. So you want it to be like a pencil lead gray. So nice pencil lead gray. Or almost like the silver on your brushes too, very close to that. Not too dark, not too light, like a medium gray. Once you're done, you can just kind of wipe off the sides of your brush on your wax paper onto your paper towel. But again, you want a nice medium gray. Our next step is going to be lining inside of our elephant shape. So I'm going to start right here. I'm going to drag my brush and I want to go over that pencil line. Be sure your yellow's nice and dry so the yellow and the gray don't mix. Go all the way around. And stop right here where that E shape is. So again, I dragged my big brush, very carefully staying inside of my elephant shape. I'm also going to go where the belly is from here to here, the left of the leg, to the right here, and stop at the toenails. Go above the toenails. And right here. And stop at that E shape. You can even get this little space right here to the left of the toenails. Then don't forget about this area. Go right where the white and the gray meet. Right here. The gray and the white meet. I am going to jump to my small brush where the E is because it's just a smaller area. It's a little bit easier. But you don't have to wash your big brush because we're going to go back to it in just a moment. So small brush, I'm going to go over this pencil line. And be careful if your teal from your stem and your leaves are still wet. You might want to give it another minute to dry. Here. I'll go around. I'm going to go to the left of the stem. To the right. Kind of get all that space around it. And you can continue with your small brush and start filling in the E shape. But you just want to make sure you outline it first around the leaves. Then you can go ahead and start filling it in. Again, I'm using my small brush in this area because it's a little bit easier to get into. So outline and then fill in. You can put your small brush away. If you ever need to go back to it for like smaller little areas, you can always go back to it. But my gray mix, my big brush, I'm going to paint the rest of the trunk, kind of going side to side. Be sure to stay inside of your gray outline. Slowly start moving up, and just kind of going in an up and down motion. Paint all this area gray. So pretty much everything besides the toenails are going to be painted this nice gray. And if you need to make more gray, no problem. Just make more gray. Make sure the gray is similar to the one you used before. If you want it to be darker, add more black. If you want it to be lighter, add more white. Get to all those little spaces. Get all the space right here. Again, just kind of painting that up and down motion. Be sure to stay within those lines. In a moment, I'll paint kind of where the belly part rolls over to the side of our canvas. I want to make sure everything looks nice and neat. Be very careful not to touch that gray. And again, between these two lines of gray, I'm going to paint more gray. I'm just using my big brush. So your elephant should be all gray except for the toenails. If you wanted to go back and give it a second coat, you could. You can do some touching up as well. Make sure that all those areas nicely filled in. It looks nice and smooth, no big bumps. Like so. If some of your gray got out of your outline, you can always go back with your small brush and your gray paint and just kind of clean up the outline by outlining it and getting it nice and clean. So again, if you got some of those areas out of your outline, you can go back and use your small brush and just kind of drag it on the area that you need to clean up a little bit. If you want to take the artist challenge, this is definitely a choice. You can always take your small brush with the gray on it. You don't even, you don't have to really like get it super clean, but just on the edge of your white, if you just wanted to grab a little bit of white, bring it over to that gray that you have, and make kind of an even lighter gray. So just be careful not to dip the whole thing in your white, but just a little bit of white. You can even tap some onto your paper towel. This is, again, the artist challenge. You can sweep like a lighter gray here on the left side where the left side of the trunk is. So if you wanted to, you can add a little bit of lighter gray. Sweep right here. You can grab that same lighter gray and start up here on the head and just kind of sweep a little bit of a lighter gray and stop at that point right before you kind of reach the forehead. But it just kind of shows a little bit of light. So from here to here, I sweep, and from here to here, I sweep. And it's a little bit of that light gray. I tap some off on my paper towel, and I kind of add those two lines. And if you don't like the way it looks, you can always go back and thin it out with your big brush and your other gray that you were using before. Whenever you're done, you can go ahead and wash and dry the brushes that you used. And again, I'm going to give this a minute or two to dry before I add any details. I don't want that wet gray paint to touch the eye, the ear, the tusk, or the toenails. I'm going to give it just a moment to dry, and I'll show you guys the last couple little mini steps. I'll wrap my brushes with my paper towel. Give all that space a little bit time to dry a little bit more. And you go back and touch anything up you can. Just be aware if a wet color touches another wet color, they're going to mix. So just be very careful if you want to go back and touch things up. Give mine about one more minute, and then I'll show you guys the last step. Again, be sure your paint isn't too shiny before you add these last couple bits of detail, because you don't want them to mix with that gray that you've created for your elephant. Alright, and I would probably generally wait a little bit longer for mine to dry, but since we're videoing, I'm going to go ahead and go forward with the next step. Again, be sure your gray is not too shiny, but with my small brush, I'm going to dip into my white container and just kind of grab a nice clean area of white. I'm going to paint the toenails white, so I'm going to go in here and just kind of make sure they're all painted in white. You can even just go on the outline a little bit and get it nice and clean. You're two toenails right here. You also have a white tusk, and you can go back and add more white to your small brush. Not too much. You can always tap some off on your paper towel if you feel like there's big clumps of white on there. But from here to here, diagonally, I'm going to create a white tusk. So I'll just make a little dot right here so you see where I start. And remember, you just want to be on the tippy toes of your small brush when you're doing line work. Just barely pushing. Might go just a little bit higher. And if you need that white to be a little bit brighter, just give it a couple minutes to dry and you can go back and give it a second coat. There's the tusk. I'm going to wash and dry my small brush. Then next I'm going to add the eye. And you're looking at the elephant from the side, so you just see one eye. Small brush, you can dip it into the container with the black. Just a little bit of black. Again, you can pat some off on your paper towel. I feel like there's too much on there. And for the eye area, it's going to be about here. It's going to be kind of like a U shape, a little bit of a U shape. I'm going to start here and barely push down from here to here for the eye. Absolutely optional, but if you wanted to add lashes to your elephant, you can always come down like sun rays. Have 4 little lines going like that. Again, that's totally optional. For my ear shape, it's like a big U shape. It'll start from up here and wrap around and come back up. Be very careful of your tusk. Start over here a little bit. This is the back area. I'm going to come up and down. I'm going to make a big U shape that passes the tusk and then comes back up and comes out. So it kind of dips in a little bit, comes down, and then back up. And as you can see, it looks like my black is kind of dipping into my wet gray paint, so I would probably give that a couple more minutes to dry. Then I would go back with a second coat. Clean this up just a little bit. Just the ear shape. And be careful of your tusk. You don't want the two to touch. And then, last but not least, be sure your toenails are nice and dry before you add the black outline around them. And it's almost like making an M shape, and I just want to be on the tippy toes of my small brush. Makes like an M shape. There you go. So I have my yellow background. I have my colorful flower. I have my gray elephant. Then all the details on top of the elephant. This looks so cute. And once you're done, again, you can wash and dry your brush because that is the last step. Thank you so much, artists, for joining us. I hope you had so much fun. I hope you continue to paint, and I hope you have a great day.